I'm Therese Apel. In my career, I've covered crime, courts, and the people who answer the call when everything's on the line. With my co-host Amanda Johansson and Sara Perkins Ricks, we talk to those who carry the weight of the front lines long after the sirens go quiet, and we tell their stories, some for the first time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide.
I am currently owner-CEO of ADS. I've got a whole bunch of guys, a whole lot smarter than I am, and what they do is they develop software for police departments and dispatchers. That's what we do. And our why is Deputy William Durr. And William Durr gave his life to protect others. And so what we try to do is make sure that back by some level of safety. That's all that matters to us.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Hey guys, welcome to Investigation Homicide. I'm Therese Apel. Thank you to our sponsors, ADSI and Southern Connection. You know, without them, we couldn't be doing this, and we love doing it so much. We love telling you these stories. So if you are a customer of either one or you want to become a customer of either one, please tell them that we said thank you, and you can thank them for letting us do this as well. So I'm sitting here tonight. My co-host is Sara Perkins Ricks. Hello, Sara.
Hey, how are you doing this week?
Good. It's, the weeks are always crazy, and this is no different.
That is true. I did want to share one good thing that happened this week since I did it the last time I was on. So we have a trustee that works for us at the police department. She cleans and does everything part of the trustee program. Well, she's kind of walking around kind of weird.
Yeah.
So why are you walking like that? She goes, oh, my shoes haven't come in. Her tennis shoes, they can only wear certain types of tennis shoes. She said, oh, my shoes haven't come in. And, these things had just a huge hole in them, and I guess there's a backlog on the shoes they can get.
Yeah.
So I called one of my friends. I'm not going to say the place that I got it from because I don't know if they want to be anonymous or what. But I said, hey, my CWC, she just needs some plain gray tennis shoes for work so she's not, tripping over them. And this is somebody I call when we have, homeless people or parents in need of extra stuff. And she got together a whole basket of tennis shoes, brand new white tennis shoes. And I was like, well, I don't know if I can give these to the camp or not. I don't know what this is. And I called the camp and they're like, yeah, you can donate them. We'll take them. We're in need of them. I was like, okay. So my CWC worker came back the next day and she said there was a girl that cried because she couldn't afford to get the tennis shoes off her because she doesn't have anybody to put money on her books or anything.
Oh, wow.
And another girl got a size that was like a women's size 13 that, they don't normally carry and she can't get. So it was just a good, I called somebody in the community and they're like, not only do I have you, I've got other people. So it was nice to see that because a lot of people, they think inmates and they're not going to help at all. And she did. She stepped up and her whole group behind her. So
that's awesome. Sara, I feel like we've done this before where you tell us a happy story before we get into the deep, dark stuff. And I love that.
I should probably wait till the end.
Yeah, close it on a high note.
Right. Yeah. We're going to make you feel real good and then real bad.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and so you just heard our guest tonight is Sheriff Randy Tucker from Madison County. Sheriff Tucker, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know that we all have these crazy schedules, but you and I have been kind of trying to touch base on this particular case for a while now.
We have. I was on, a year or so ago, Myra Lewis case, and now we're back looking for help on this one. So
yeah. Well, and that actually generated some discussion. It didn't bring a conclusion, but it did start some talk. So maybe this will help out too.
Yeah, I hope so. Yep.
So I remember I was working at WLBT when this happened. It wasn't my story immediately, but I just remember thinking when I heard it, So you had a security guard, an 85-year-old security guard at one of the apartment complexes that was shot. He was a sitting duck. He was just in his car. How did you get this call? When did you first hear about this?
Well, this goes back to June 14th of 2020, actually, about 11:15 p.m. at night. So those security guards there was two guards that were assigned to that particular complex. And on this night, David Herrin, who was the victim in this case, George David Herrin, 85-year-old man, working security there. He was just a salt of the earth guy, 85 years old, patrolled the complex there. Everybody there loved him. The kids loved him because he rode around, passed out candy to the kids, and they loved to see him coming. And sadly enough, on June 14th of that year, while sitting in the complex in his car, an individual walked up to the car and fired approximately 4 shots into the vehicle, struck him in the neck and the cheek. And, of course, my officers were dispatched because we'd gotten the calls from people that heard the shots and saw people running or a person running. And officers got there. The gentleman, or Mr. Herrin, was actually still alive at that point. And we were able to secure the scene and get medical help there for him. But tragically, he died at the hospital. So you had an elderly gentleman just going about his job in a community that he was trying to help, with people that really loved him, loved his presence there, shot in a cowardly fashion for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Right. Well, and the fact that we're still talking about this 6 years later, obviously the first thing you guys do is you go and you work that actual scene. Talk us through what that scene was like for your investigators.
Well, he was in this vehicle, as I said, there in the parking lot around Building 7, and this was in Canton at 388 Ricks Drive.
Was it in the city of Canton?
Right
outside.
At the time, the complex itself was considered part of county jurisdiction, so it was outside of municipal limits at the time. But we pulled up to the scene. Initially, the call was just shots had been fired. And, of course, we always, and Sara, you as a police officer, you go and investigate these calls, see what was hit, if anything, or if anybody's there. And one of my deputies was walking around the area and saw this car that had apparent bullet holes in it. And he walks over, and there's Mr. Herrin in the vehicle with the apparent gunshots. And in fact, it was gunshots. But anyway, you secure that immediately. Any physical evidence, bullet casings, anything, first you get the medical help there. That's foremost. Then you start securing all physical evidence that you can, securing witnesses, because, crowds gather, once police come, everybody wants to know what's going on. They want a video. They want to take pictures. So
I was wondering if there had been a crowd out.
Yeah, and like I said, it was late. It was 11:15 at night, and you'd be just surprised at the number of people. Of course, in an apartment complex, everybody's pretty centrally located there, but gunshots have a way of drawing a crowd.
Was there a lot of foot traffic during that time in that apartment complex? Where do people walk around a lot, or by 11, everybody's pretty much where they?
At that time of night, it's moderate. It's not real heavy like it is earlier in the evening times. Early on, you'll have crowds of young adults that want to hang out and fellowship or what have you. Kids playing, but that by that time of night, most of the younger children are inside. The people that you do see out are basically sitting on the steps, just jawing back and forth, talking and carrying on. But by, around midnight, that's pretty much dissipated at that point. So there weren't a lot of people there initially, but as I said, gunshots draw crowds. I mean, you've seen it just like a fight. Everybody wants to watch, So there were a good number of people there, and of course, witnesses come forward with what they've heard or seen, and of course, when you start notifying the complex owners, they start giving you additional evidence like camera footage and stuff like that. So you get all of that secured, and it's a process of bagging and tagging all of that evidence and interviewing those witnesses from that point, trying to develop a suspect, putting out bolos to surrounding agencies if there's a car that you're looking for or suspect description. You get all that put out, because those first few hours are critical in any case. So it was pretty chaotic right at first. We had, about 5 or 6 deputies there, the ambulance personnel. Obviously, the concern for Mr. Herring was pretty dire at that point, not just from our standpoint, but the community loved him. They loved him.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you because, of course, you know how when you've worked enough cases, you may not remember details of a case, but you remember the feeling of a case.
Yep.
And I remember when I was looking at the stories from back then, I was thinking, was this one where it was hard to get the apartment complex to talk? I know that sometimes you have a homicide where it's hard to get the neighborhood to talk. But in this case, I felt like maybe that was the case, but then I thought, no, because they loved this guy.
It really wasn't. And you're right. In a lot of cases, nobody wants to say anything for fear of retribution or retaliation. But in this case, everybody liked the guy, and they were ready to come forward with what they heard and saw and did.
Yeah.
We interviewed a number of witnesses and got the footage from the complex and were able to go back and talk with, after interviewing those witnesses, we had a vague description of a suspect and a direction of travel, and we were able to track those particular movements through adjacent complexes and obtain additional footage and develop a vehicle that we felt like was involved in the actual crime itself. And you just kind of, from there, you just kind of have to piece and part it. But I'm going to tell you, in any case that we ever work, you've heard the old saying, the streets talk.
Oh, yeah.
And they do. There's a lot of good people that are just simply scared to say anything in front of anybody. Hey, I'll call you, but I'm not going to say it out here in front of anyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it went that night.
Sure. Well, so you said you got a vague description. What did you know about your suspect in that immediate aftermath?
Well, we knew it was a black male. We knew he had short curly hair. We knew he was dressed in all dark clothing, and we knew a direction of travel. He was kind of medium skin tone. We had approximate height, build, what have you, that just those demographic features of the person themselves. But then we had the direction of travel that they went, so we were able to match that clothing description and build through those other complexes to persons that might fit that. And like I said, there weren't a lot of people out at that time of night, like Sara was alluding to a while ago, so it was fairly easy to look at the time stamps on the videos, and then, okay, it ought to take him 30 seconds. He should be there by now, and pull up, a 15-second window either way, and yeah, there he is right there. So we were pretty confident that we had a suspect description at that point.
So I guess the next question is, we are still talking about this as unsolved 6 years later. So you guys hit a wall somewhere. What was the first hurdle? Once you think you know who that guy is, what is it that kind of slows the investigation down?
Well,
can you say?
Tangible evidence really is the first hurdle that you have to overcome as far as DNA, as far as fingerprint analysis. But you have to have a suspect name in order to have something to reference it to.
Sure.
I mean, you can't just take a fingerprint and say, all right, it belongs to John Doe or whoever. Now you can obviously run those through the data bank, and if there's been a previous arrest or what have you, they can a lot of times hit on a match. But you've got to wait on that fingerprint analysis to come back. So there's an immediate wait right there.
And I just can't imagine having many suspects who'd be upset with an 85-year-old man who gives kid candy. You don't think they'd have any enemy. Sometimes you'd be like, oh, it's an ex-boyfriend, or it's a gang rivalry, or it's his buddy that did it. And who do you have for an 80-year-old?
Which leads me to my next point. I mean, one of the very first things you do is look for, hey, who has a reason to shoot this man? There was no reason for anybody to shoot this man. He wasn't from there. All the kids and people there loved him. He hadn't caused harm to anybody there or had any beef with anybody there. There just was no motive that we could establish that anybody or connect anybody to that would fit that suspect description whatsoever. So, I mean, that was a major block right there.
So you had, though, somebody that you could see, you just didn't know who he was.
Right. Yeah. How
frustrating was that for you? Because one thing I know about you, Sheriff Tucker, is that everybody thinks you're tough, and you're this, I don't want to say former narc, because I think once you're a narc, you're always a narc. But right. You're the guy that has always, just been strong. But I also know that there's a heart in there. And I know that you do get emotionally, let me say emotionally attached. I'm not, emotional makes it sound like you cry all the time, and you don't. Yeah. But, you put your heart in your cases. What was going on in your head during this?
Well, I think that's probably a pretty fair assessment that you gave, to be honest with you. I do, and sometimes I won't say I probably am guilty of putting a little too much of my feelings into it, but all I can do is picture if that was my grandfather, how would I feel? Try to put yourself in the victim's place, the victim's family's place, and I think that just gives you a stronger work ethic to make it want to happen for them, So it's extremely frustrating, especially, with my background and what I did for so long or still do actually. But with as many contacts as I have, not to be able to develop a suspect.
Yeah.
Because, again, the streets do talk. And when we get a little further down the line, we'll come back to that, and I'll tell you why that was extremely frustrating and how that is going to help.
I can imagine, because as a reporter who's worked on my beat as long as I have, I've got all these law enforcement contacts. When there's a case that I literally can't get anything on, I can't even get somebody to be like, okay, off the record, what actually happened? They're like, Therese, I can't talk to you. I'm like, are you kidding? And there's that feeling of like, I'm not going to know this one. I'm going to have to wait for it to play out. That's got to be way more frustrating when you're the guy who can go to the streets and somebody's going to trust you with the information usually.
It is, and I'm probably guilty of that, because I don't like for my guys and girls to talk.
Yeah.
If it's going to come, it's going to come from me.
That's
fair. Because if it's going to get messed up, I'm the one prepared to shoulder the blame. And where in this profession, you're emotional, and I think, my chief deputy's got this rule for me. He knows I'm mad, and he's like, you need to take your 20 minutes and before you talk. And I'm guilty of it, because a lot of times I'll blow off the handle mad, and I just want to be careful that we're respectful of the family, respectful of the victim, and not compromising an investigation by speaking off the cuff.
Sure.
So I have had to learn to kind of temper not just them, but myself.
Well, and I think, though, and in this case, I mean, I can say, like I said, I looked at it and I remember thinking, I didn't know anything about this one. This wasn't one that I knew anything behind the scenes, but I also feel like if I had to guess, that's because you guys were treating it with so much respect because of who the victim was.
Well, and not to downplay any case, but this guy was a security officer. And to me, an officer is an officer.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there doing something very similar to what we do. He's protecting and serving in a capacity that, is very close to all of us. Not that any case is not close to us. They all are, but it's a little closer to home, even though you're not related, when it's your profession.
Yeah.
So not giving a reason, like not having a reason, those are usually the toughest ones to wrap your minds around, because if there's just no reason, he was minding his own business, that could be anybody. That could be the stranger that comes into your house at night and you don't know who they are. It could affect anybody. So those always get you.
Those are hard.
They are.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm trying to remember, was he also at some point retired law enforcement, or what was his background?
I don't want to sit here and lie to you.
Okay.
I don't really know his background. I think I do recall that, but this was just something he did because he wanted to. I don't think he necessarily had to. It's just something he enjoyed doing, getting out in his, I don't know, his golden years. He enjoyed doing it. He enjoyed, I'm telling you, his passion was those kids over there. He loved to watch them get out and play basketball, and he'd give them a Gatorade, he'd give them a lollipop, and that's what's so frustrating about this case is that no reason whatsoever to gun somebody down like that.
Right. Well, so, okay, you've got an idea of who the guy is by sight. You're looking for who he is by name. You're working the streets. At what point do you just kind of have to start over? Like we've already done all this. What comes next?
So, you and I were talking about this case and well, let me back up just a minute. You start interviewing witnesses and putting together a timeline and matching up stories, trying to make sure that we're all talking about the same person. And we realized real quick, hey, everybody's telling the same thing. We had women that were in their apartment with their kids that heard the shots. They jump up, they run over there, look out the window. There's this black male in dark clothing standing there by the car, and he takes off running. And then you talk to the witness across the street that says, yeah, I saw him, this guy in dark clothing running this way, back toward Rick's Drive. And you, again, take those cameras and you're building that timeline and making sure all this is lining up to that one person. And they all were. So once you start putting all those pieces together to make sure we're looking at the same person, but you can't identify them and you hit that block, then it's time to go back to the start and start analyzing everything that you've done. And, you and I have been talking about this case for, I don't remember when we first talked about doing this.
Yeah.
But, so in preparation for tonight, because I didn't want to get up here and sound like an idiot about the case, I'm going to read my homework like my English teacher would be so proud of me doing.
Yeah.
I went back and started reading the file. And, of course, one of the investigators that was involved in the case, I called him and I said, come up here, let's review this file. And look, you can see this is the file.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's extensive. And we start asking each other questions, and he kind of looks at me, and I look at him, and I was like, did you see that? And did you see that? And he's like, yeah, I see that. I said, we didn't see that before, or I didn't see it before. And he's like, I didn't either. Because the original case agent has moved on. It's not there with us anymore. So sometimes you just have to back up, put a fresh set of eyes on something and look at it objectively. And so I can actually sit here and tell you that after doing that this week, I think we have a suspect. Well, I don't think. I know we do.
Right.
Look, that is funny because that is Jordan's question.
Yeah.
It got answered, I think.
So Jordan is Sarah's husband, and he always gives us the very best questions. He's our
Yeah.
favorite question asker. So you want to go ahead and read it,
Nope,
Sarah?
you read it. It looks like he used big
Okay.
words.
Yes. Cases like this inevitably lose public attention long before investigators stop working them. From a leadership perspective, how do you keep a years-old homicide investigation active and objective while ensuring fresh eyes continue to challenge earlier assumptions instead of simply reinforcing them?
Well, I'm not going to speak for every agency, but periodically with the Sheriff's Department, we will take any unsolved cases that we have and sit back and review those. And, we'll swap them amongst ourselves because everybody's got a perspective on everything, and they all differ. And you just want to take the pieces of the puzzle and try to put them together the best you can. And what may be a clear picture to me may still be blurry to you. Mm-hmm. And what may be clear to you is blurry to me. But when you sit down together and start pointing to different things, and say, Sara, does this make sense? Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. And then all of a sudden we're on the same page. Well, we need to do this or we need to do that. Let's question this, let's question that, or what if we take this piece of evidence and put it over here with this piece of evidence? Does that make one grand piece of evidence? And that's kind of what happened.
Right.
So I think we have the evidence and the timeline in order now that we have sat back and reviewed this particular case. And we feel confident that we're fixing to have an arrest warrant issued and go pick up an individual.
I love that. On that thought, we are going to hear from our sponsors again, and we will be right back.
I am currently owner CEO of ADSI. I've got a whole bunch of guys, a whole lot smarter than I am. And what they do is they develop software for sleep and dispatchers. That's what we do. And our why is Deputy William Durr. And William Durr gave his life to protect others. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that I can provide some level of safety. That's all that matters to us.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Thanks again to our sponsors, Southern Connection and ADSI. Again, if you are one of their customers, tell them that you listen. Make sure they know that their money is well spent. So we were just talking about this case and how for 6 years it's been a question. Sheriff, I know you were saying that kind of y'all put your heads together just so that you could go over this case before you came here, and you found something. What was it that made it kind of tougher to develop this suspect through the years up until now?
Well, it was actually a culmination of different things. As I said, the original investigator has moved on. So when you pick up somebody else's case and you don't know what their perspective was on something, it's kind of tough to pick up that case and move forward. So we kind of picked it up at a stall point, one of those stall points we were talking about, and didn't really know where to go. It was in that period of time that things had kind of stalled out. We couldn't develop that suspect, and we were frustrated as all get out. But I'm going to tell you, after this week's events, I got to tell you, I'm really proud of my guys and girls. I'm not trying to be, but we had gotten to that point We were frustrated. We sat down, we reviewed it, we looked at it, and it just kind of all went, holy cow. You know, this one thing, you know, we've talked about this in several cases,
Yeah.
that one piece of evidence or one point of view that you may think is not really important that's what we needed.
Yeah.
And it all kind of came to light on us. And the reason we never could develop that suspect is because he's not from here.
I've seen that in so many cases where it's like he's not somebody you've dealt with, and he's not somebody that the neighbors know. And maybe he's been in prison for all this time, or maybe he's come in town to visit, or maybe he left after it happened.
That's correct. He wasn't from here. A lot of people didn't know him. So once we got that information and looking back through our suspect list, it was readily identifiable. And the frustrating part now is that we looked at this person early on, but there was no reason to believe it.
I think so. And Sara, correct me if I'm wrong in your experience, but I've heard that so many times with cases. It's like you look at somebody early on and they have a pretty reasonable alibi and you can't make any other connections. So it's like it just isn't in your brain that that's the guy. And I think that happens a lot, doesn't it?
Well, I think you have to know where you work. You have to know your community that you work in. Canton is very tight-knit, and they're nosy. Everybody knows everybody or what everybody knows what your cousin's doing or your aunt's doing. Everybody knows everything. Like you said, the streets talk. So if the streets aren't talking, they don't know, and they know everything. So the time kind of has to lapse for you to get that, right? That's
right.
how I would think, for you to be like, you know, I haven't heard anything. Nobody knows anything. I haven't heard anybody else on our suspect list. Then I can see how the light bulb went off, like, oh, he's not from here.
As soon as that light bulb went off, we went, hey, we're working this the wrong way.
Right.
We're trying to work it from the crime to the suspect, and what we need to do is work it from the suspect back to the crime. So as soon as we developed that suspect, that's what we did. And it's amazing how quickly it went together backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It was really amazing as far as records and, I mean, things that you can track. And it, you know, when it, I don't want to say too much yet, but I mean, if we could do this in 2 weeks and I could tell you all of it.
Yeah, just come back. We'll do an update.
It's pretty shocking, actually, but developing that suspect and working it backwards, it's really amazing to see how crystal clear it is.
Sure. Well, and to me, you know, there are days in my job that I don't feel like I'm old and jaded. And every now and then I still have that aha moment when I'm looking at something, I'm like, oh, there it is. And it's this feeling of, and you've been doing this a long time. You've been an investigator your whole life. I can tell from the way you're talking about it that you had that.
I'm excited about it, I'll be honest with you, because I'm going to be able to do something for this family that they deserve. And put somebody behind bars that deserves that. But I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be satisfying from my standpoint and from the sheriff's department standpoint that we were able to solve it.
Yeah. Well, and I know because, like you said, we've talked about it a couple times ever since. I think you were episode number 11, maybe, and we're on 70 now. So we've been talking about it at least that long that you wanted to come back and talk about this. But it seems to me that when you look at just kind of at the trajectory that this thing has taken, the idea of being able to one day put those cuffs on him, one day sit him in a Mississippi courtroom, it has to be something that now that it's actually in view, it's a different feeling.
Absolutely. It is. and I'll come back and we'll put his picture up and do all that good stuff.
Yeah, and then we're going to ask you how you put it together, and you're going to tell us whatever you can. I realize until it goes to trial, there's still things you can't say. But
there's some things you can't say. But I'm telling you, and it's still it's not funny. I don't mean it funny, but the sad part is it was there.
Mm-hmm.
It just needed those fresh eyes and a different perspective. It's like looking at something from this side of you ever put a jigsaw puzzle together and you look at it from this side of the table and then you walk around to the other side and you go, oh, this piece goes there. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it was like. It was there the whole time. We just had to look at it backwards. And it was like, holy cow.
Yeah. Sara, I know you have one in your life that you're hoping one day you see the resolution on. What, I mean, to you, when you hear this story and you think about just the different cases that, I realize you're not an investigator, but the cases that you've worked just as a law enforcement officer, does it give you some kind of hope for that one that you're holding out on? And I know you can't tell us about it.
There's always, I'll always have that hope. This one is a very, very tough one.
Yeah.
That it would but they didn't know about DNA. And then when they did know about DNA, they didn't know about touch DNA. And then, the things change. Technology changes. I have hope for that.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to bring peace to a family member, but sometimes you don't have that. And I think that's probably the worst part of being an investigator is when you hit that wall. But man, to like have that aha moment, and then you can also bring it back, like the people in this apartment complex who loved him, who probably think about him, every once in a while and say, man, I wonder what happened to him. Y'all didn't forget him. And his story's still there. And hopefully the kids he inspired do great things.
Yeah, we had a guest on the show not long ago, and she's coming back soon, but she's a Jackson police officer who was, as a child, she was abused, and all she remembered 40 years later was that a man that she remembered as a tall white police officer had come in and saved her out of this abusive home, and that's what made her want to be a Jackson police officer. And so we were able to locate him, and he's deceased, but his family, she got to meet his family and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like what you're talking about is always possible when you've got somebody who's willing to take the time to, befriend kids in a neighborhood or in a place where they're just out playing or whatever. And I think that's something I really want to hit is this guy isn't the sum of how he died. He's the sum of how he lived. And he certainly was given back in his last years.
He absolutely was. And, that's when kids are at their most impressionable. There may be a police officer that comes out of that group or about bottom line, just good people that may be kind to somebody else because he was. And I have never, throughout this case, and I didn't know him personally, but throughout this case, I have never heard a bad word uttered about the man.
Yeah.
And you just don't hear that nowadays. Everybody's got an enemy or two.
Especially with social media.
Boy, I wish I could say I don't have any enemies, but
Me too.
Lord, I do. And, I just never have heard one about him. But hopefully if we can get this done, or let me say when we get this done, I hope that it will help the family and help Mr. Herrin spirit rest.
What will it mean to you to be able to sit down at a table with them and tell them when you've got
I'll probably cry.
I will too.
I will. You
all
already
right.
told them I'm emotional.
I'm emotional too. That's why I can say it.
Yeah, I'm emotional. I do.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I'm vested in people and what we do.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like at this stage of the game that we're all at, if you don't have those emotions, if you don't have that ability anymore to see that as somebody that matters and a family as somebody who's lost
You need
something.
to get out.
Yeah, you probably ought to go
Time
to
to
the
go.
Get out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you can't look at a child that's been in an abusive home or in a domestic violence situation and feel that pain for them, if you can't feel for the battered woman,
Mm-hmm.
in an abusive marriage, if you can't feel for a shooting victim's family, you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah. Well, Sara, what are your thoughts?
I'm just happy for you. Like, I can feel your excitement. I'm excited for you because that's such a good feeling. And then, just to have that, you could tell it in your eyes. You're like, finally,
Yeah.
we've gotten there. I'm sure the investigators that have worked on the case through the years are probably thinking the same thing because I know things like that stay with you.
They do, and they were telling me, "Oh, don't go down there and blow it on this interview now. We don't call his name, don't do this, don't do." I said, "I'm not. The crime is the crime. You can't undo that. But yeah, I'm gonna come back and share with you when we get this animal off the streets."
Wait for that.
I can't wait for
I
that
want to be
either.
here for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, you let me know when it happens. You don't have to tell me anything, and I will find you an open day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll
And
do
if not, we'll make one.
Right.
we'll absolutely do it.
Bonus episodes.
Yeah, right. Actually, I'll tell you guys, the listeners, this. I'm actually playing with the idea of a Patreon or a place where you can go for bonus episodes, bonus information, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's not like we don't say everything on here, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we miss something. So,
Yeah.
But no, because we're talking about this tonight, we will bring it back here, whether I start a Patreon or not. We have another commenter. Colton Pig says Sheriff Tucker is one of the best to do it. He has taught me so much in the job and will forever be thankful for the wisdom he's shared with me.
Colton's a good young man. He worked for me for a while. He's with Madison PD now and doing a really good job for them. But I've known Colton and his family a long time. So
Yeah.
good
Well,
guy.
I mean, I think the thing is when you've worked in law enforcement as long as you have, I mean, you were laughing, you've made some enemies, but you've certainly helped a lot of people too.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Well, any closing thoughts, Sara?
I don't have any today. I gave you it at the top. I need to start waiting for the end.
And
Hey,
you know what's great? We didn't have a sad ending.
I'll tell you, a comment on the trustees. I mean, those are guys and girls, and we've got a trustee program. And those guys and girls, I mean, and people need to realize there are some good people in jail that just made a bad decision. And those trustee programs are for nonviolent offenders.
Right.
So there are bad people in jail too that need to be in jail. But those trustee programs are for those nonviolent offenders that are getting rehab basically through the judicial system and incarceration. But we've got some really good trustees. And I was talking to this gentleman over here earlier. We've got a phenomenal trustee that is just an artist. We've got some professionals that just made a mistake, but they're human beings and they have needs. And a lot of them, just like this young lady, didn't have the means. So we provide them things, but kudos to you for doing that for them.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
And I'll say this, she was one of the ones that one night, one bad mistake.
Yep.
And she has a heart of gold and is one of the hardest workers I know, and she knows how to build houses. So now I put a whole shelf together by myself, and I had to tell, all the guys at work, like, I put it together by myself. Like, no, you didn't. And I was like, okay, well, Leslie helped me. Right. But she's great. she didn't even ask. She's just walking around limping, and I was like, what are you doing? So it's good to have her because she's just an inspiration to me. She has taken a really bad situation and has just such a good positive outlook on life. And then, other people that are willing, no matter who I call, I have like a network of people, and I'm like, calling for help again, I need this, and this, and it always shows up. Food, grocery gift cards, shoes, clothes, anything, whether it's an officer in need or a family in need or a trustee in need. And like, people really are good. Like, the world on social media is so negative, but like, here in our communities, people care about each other, and they really don't care where you've come from or what you've done, but they'll give their shirt off back in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's easy to be kind.
Yeah, it really
It takes
is.
work to be mean.
For most people. I think
Yeah.
some are born mean.
oh, no, you should come in my position. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. All right, Sheriff, any closing thoughts?
No, I tell you, I appreciate the invitation to be on here again. You know, you probably had somebody better you could have had here, but I was excited to come down here to share with you because I knew what I was going to be able to tell you, and I was hoping that would make you happy.
Yeah.
That we're going to do that, and I just really appreciate you guys going out weekly and profiling these cases. I mean, if we can just solving one makes it worth it. So let's call a domino effect. Let's get some more solved.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of the ones we do on here are ones that are solved, but when we bring one on that's unsolved, I always have the hope that something like this will happen.
Yep.
So we're going to work on that. Actually, I have one that is an old cold case that I've been begging the guy to come and I can't say anything about who or what, but he's like, we're about to break this thing. And I'm like, come on now.
You know what's scary is that if you and I had not sat down and talked about this case and had not brought it forward and had not put fresh eyes on it and revisited it, would we have looked at it from a different perspective?
That's the big man upstairs
Yeah, that's God.
saying it's time.
Yeah. And I like to say sometimes reporters are good for something. Well,
So I'm going to give you partial credit on this one.
well, thank you. I'm just glad we finally made it work for you to get here.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right. Well, thank you guys for being here.
Thank
It's been
you.
a good one.
Yep.
It was happy at the end. Thank you guys for joining us out there. We will be back next week, same time, same place, and we're going to have Sheriff Tucker back as soon as he can tell us more. And we hope you have a great week.